Welcome back to the Real with Joseph Lappin. I am Joseph Lappin. You guys having a great Tuesday afternoon. Welcome to the Real. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd really appreciate that. Shout out to all new subscribers as well who have subscribed to us in the last few months. Appreciate you guys for all your feedback. Thank you, everybody who tunes in and comments in the live chat, comments below the videos. We appreciate you guys. And yeah, shout out to all you guys. But I'm going to get right to it today. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to get through these two topics. I got the Cavs on the back end today. It's right. We're talking some Cavs basketball. It's been a little minute since the LeBron thing wrapped up, but I got some thoughts I want to share on some things in the Cavs that have kind of cycled in the news today, so I want to get my thoughts on that. But going to start with the Browns. I'm going to get to more of the quarterback battle here in a minute, or what is supposed to be a battle. I'm going to get to that here in a minute. I gave my thoughts on that yesterday in the last few shows of what I think is going on there. But, yesterday at practice, not a clean practice yesterday. Now, today the Browns bounced back at practice. It looks like the quarterbacks were a little cleaner with the ball. But, yesterday, and I reported on the show once the reports, or I shared the reports on the show, once the reports were coming out of practice yesterday that, the operation wasn't very clean, a lot of pre-snap, some penalties, some false starts, stuff like that. And so, we've seen Deshaun Watson, especially turn the ball over a lot. He did throw a pick today, his ninth pick in 12 days. So, we've seen a lot of sloppy play in terms of the offense, from the procedural standpoints and just penalties and stuff like that. And Todd Monken, not very happy about it. He shared his thoughts at practice today when asked about it, before practice today when asked about it. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, not good. I got hijacked. I mean, we did such a good job on Saturday, cadence-wise, and then at the end in 2 minutes, just couldn't get out of our own way. Well, I did a poor job of working through it. Tried to continue with cadence just to, force them in the moment to overcome a little bit of a setback in the drive, but we're certainly not there yet. I said it to the offense. I said it to those guys. I told them that in that moment, what I should have done and what I didn't do. And that, as I've said to them and us, I mean, we're human. I got fired up. I was pissed. And that was awful. That was football. And that is going to get me fired up. And I have to own some of that. Obviously, we haven't coached it well enough. There were other aspects about the 2 minute that got me fired up that obviously was a reflection of coaching. I mean, those things, we're getting plenty of effort. Guys are fighting their rear ends off. We're tough. So we got that. Okay, well, how are we going to do the little things well? And that's coaching. That's me, and that's our staff.
And that's 100% correct.
Okay, well,
everybody's giving effort. Everybody's giving toughness. Everybody's, there's a toughness side of things. Like he said there, that's not an issue. Okay. These are NFL players. You expect them to go out and give high effort every day. You expect that to be at least the bare minimum. Okay, you're paid to go out there and give effort and play at a high level. It's a physical game. It's a combat sport, right? It's supposed to be out there and be physical and show those types of things, like you said, toughness and all that. It's part of the game. But I like what he said there in terms of the little things. The great teams, they do the little things well, and that's something the Browns have not done well for the last 2 years. Obviously, under Kevin Stefanski, they were one of the more penalized teams in the league the last few years. Really started in 24 when they made the coaching changes abruptly on the offensive side of the ball, which I think really hurt Kevin Stefanski in the long run the most. And they are what they are, they were what they were. They were the most penalized team in football, a sloppy team, and they shot themselves in the foot a lot of times. And so, I think what Todd Monken is saying is 100% accurate. It's on the coaching staff as well. You're clear they're not coaching things as well, like you said. They got to emphasize some things more, narrow down some things a little better in practice and in the film sessions and in the position meetings. They got to be a little more intense. And so, obviously, Todd Monken said he lost his cool a little bit at the end of practice. When I read the report yesterday, I think it was from Zach Jackson. It said that they had the sloppy end of practice, and then that practice ended. And it sounded like to me, like I say yesterday, something like Monken got pissed and said, "Everybody, all right, that's it." So obviously talked to his team today. That's what good coaches do. They communicate with their team and they go over these things and say, "Hey, this is why I lost my cool here, but we can't allow this." And I think the right players will adapt to that, right? You'll weave out who are the guys you want in your locker room and who you probably won't make the team. So, Overall, all in all, I mean, this is why it's training camp, right? It's called training camp for a reason. It's practice. You're training to get these things out, get them better, and work yourself up to be a better team. And like you said, right now they're not where they need to be in terms of those types of things. I think what Todd Monken's looking for, particularly with the quarterbacks as well, is who can I trust to run the offense how I want it ran and not turn the ball over, not and get everybody organized, get the right cadences out, communicate. Like you got to who can run everything cleanly. And that's a standard as an NFL quarterback. If you can't go out there and run things from an operational standpoint at a clean level, you're not gonna be in the league much long. Okay, let's just tell you're not gonna be in the league much long. So, uh, you know, I like what I hear from Coach Muckin though. Much better. I like the um, I like the fired up mentality to be honest with you, and I like how he addressed it today. And again, I think he's definitely changing the culture here in Cleveland and shifting the culture and just calling it what it is. Like you said, it's crappy football, and we've had a lot of crappy football. And to be honest with you guys, I think a lot of what Coach Munkin's dealing with right now is kind of what he inherited. He's trying to work those things out. I mean, I think the fact that they're still having these problems in training camp, which are problems they've had in the last 2 years, especially, I think this shows how bad the last 2 years got. From where they were in that playoff game in 23 against the Texans and the run they had that year to when they made the changes and how they declined slowly over time to just terrible football team. Um, I think a lot of it is what he inherited as well. I think he's trying to work out a lot of things. There's probably a lot of things that were allowed behind the scenes that I know under the old regime. And, I think he's trying to, he's set a new standard, new culture. And so, for some of these guys that were drafted into that old regime, it's probably a little bit of a shock to them in terms of adapting to it. Okay, this is a different standard. It's a different, maybe not as a country club as it's been, the last few years. But so I think that's a lot of it. It's what he inherited, and he's also a first-time coach, and he's probably learned how to communicate things a little differently because he's the man in charge. And so, but overall, in all, I think it's fine. To me, I'm not as worried about that. The fact that he's addressing it and taking accountability of some coaching staff and starting with him, that gives me a lot of confidence they can fix these things. Now, in terms of the quarterback battle going on, we discussed yesterday what happened Saturday in terms of, what happened Saturday where before practice, Todd Monken told the media that the Shador was going to get all the one reps that day. And then literally no less than an hour later, and I heard too, Shador was already warming up too to be getting ready. Like they were getting ready for practice. But Deshaun Watson somehow knew that, according to Mary Kay, that he was going to get the one reps that day. Between when Monken um, told the media that between they started practice that he was informed that he was going to take the one reps. So we heard Todd Monken obviously talk about that yesterday, and I played the clip on the show. I'm not going to play it again, but I will pull this back up from Daniel Oyefusi of ESPN, where he explained it. And again, right there in the middle of there, it says, though Monken said before practice that Sanders will get a, quote, majority of the first team reps, he said he was later informed that Sanders had received more padded practices with the starters than Watson in the week, so Monken changed the order of the reps. And again, like Todd Monken said on the tape that I played yesterday, you go look it up for yourself, but I have it on deck in case, people don't remember. But I don't think I need to play it, though. But he said that they came and tapped him on the shoulder, told him what he wrote right there. And he said, okay, yeah, I'll flip it. I'll flip my practice. And I said yesterday, that raised a lot of eyebrows with me because, A, your coach knows what's going on with practice day after day. He and his staff meet multiple times a day before and after practice and sometimes in the middle. They keep track of all this. They know everything that's going on. They plan their practices ahead of time. They know who's working with who because they have a different plan catered for each, probably the quarterbacks as well. They want what they want to see them do in certain situations, certain plays, and where they, concepts and everything. This is all pre-planned, a lot of it. And the fact that they, which I think is the organization, clearly had to be, came and told him, the head coach, because again, the head coach already knows all the stuff that's going on. He like I just said, he plans his practice ahead of time. They must have came and told him, like he said, that we want to see Deshaun. And, like I said yesterday, that raised an eyebrow to me because it's like, okay, we've seen this in the past in Cleveland where we saw the organization at times not give the coach the full autonomy in a lot of things. And I'm not saying that's we don't know for sure that's what's going on here, but when I hear him say what he said yesterday, and just all the I think I had the stat right here. Let me pull it up for you guys. Since they've made that switch on Saturday, okay, going into today. Now today at practice, the tracker, Shador Sanders was 17 of 25, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Gabriel was 5 of 11, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Watson was 20 of 29, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So the last 2 days, we've seen Watson and Shador basically have the almost similar amount of throws attempted at practice. Now, obviously, who's having the reps with the ones is obviously what you want to see. Now, the total amount, okay, before Saturday, this is from Football Chops of ESPN Cleveland. He said before Saturday, Shador had 37 first-team reps, Watson had 29. After Saturday, Shador had 37 first-team reps, and Watson had 63. Okay, with pads on. Okay, that's with pads on. Now, the total right now, total first-team reps through before today. So this isn't before today's practice, but still a gap. Watson had 156 total first-team reps, and Shador had 114. Okay, so there is a difference there in the rep count. All right, and so again, that's for Football Chops. So before Saturday, Shador had the lead in terms of who had the most reps, padded reps, first-team reps, in practice. And it was Shador 37, Watson 29. After Saturday, since they came and told Todd Monken, Shador 37, Watson 63. And again, you see the total, or let me put this on the screen for you guys so you can see it right here. And again, the total overall in camp right here, Watson 156, Shador 114. And we saw the first week, Deshaun Watson was off to a bad start. Did not look good at all, was turning the ball over a lot. He did bounce back last week to his credit and played a lot better. And what I mean by better, at least he wasn't throwing them as many picks. He looked like he was making some more NFL quarterback starting quarterback throws. He did bounce back and look better. But overall, Shador's been the most consistent since camp has started. Now, Mary Kay Cabot, we know someone putting their thumb on the scale. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get to, again, appreciate the Brian Johnson for tuning again. And like I said, and Brian Johnson, who was a former coach, he said yesterday, we talked about this yesterday on the show, these practices are planned ahead of time. It's very rare. I've never seen a coach just flip like that on the spot. I don't think that happened. Somebody came and told him, like he said, to change the practice of who gets the first team reps. And we've seen and I just showed you the amount of reps since. I mean, that's a pretty big gap now that Deshaun had, or a decent, I don't say a big gap, but it's pretty good sized gap. Okay. That he had 156 total compared to 114. So, you look at that. And I told you guys, obviously they can't get rid of Deshaun Watson, because if they tried to get rid of Deshaun Watson with his contract, it would have been catastrophic to their cap, and they weren't going to do that. And nobody's trading for Deshaun Watson because of the money and just where he's at in his career. And so he hasn't played consistent football in 6 years. So, we know all that. So the Browns are stuck with Deshaun for one more year. Okay, this is not breaking news. We've known this for a while. I told you guys, I said the only way I see them having a plan to put Deshaun Watson as the starter week 1 is because they have a new head coach, a new system, rookie wide receivers, but most importantly, they have a new offensive line, right? They have they have a rookie left tackle, Spencer Fano, who looks good, but he's going to be a rookie, right? They got a lot of new guys. They got a new coach in George Warhop coming in. They got a new system, right? There's going to be a lot of development, and there's going to be a lot of mistakes and kinks to get out early on in the season. They're one of the youngest teams in the NFL. So that's to be expected. And I told you guys for the last 2 shows, I said, I think the Browns, I would hope the Browns took a lesson from what they did with Baker in 2021, where Baker was on an evaluation year, on a contract years, and he had just gotten into the playoffs, and they wanted to evaluate him to see if they wanted to pay him a second contract. And he got hurt, obviously, week 2. We all know the story, and they forced him out there. He should not have been playing. As hurt as he was, and the injuries he had. He couldn't even plant and throw properly. I mean, and they put him out there to the Wolves. At the Packers game was the most infamous one, where Coach Stub Mitchell was on the staff, mentioned on the show, and mentioned on other shows as well. They flew him in on a plane that morning of the Christmas Day game against Green Bay. He hadn't practiced in 8-9 days, and he threw 4 picks. Well, of course he threw 4 picks. He was injured. He hadn't had any reps in practice. He was out of rhythm, didn't game plan, nothing. And so, and I think, like I mentioned yesterday, if you go back and watch yesterday's show, I talked for a while about how, developing the quarterback position takes time, and each player is different. Like I said, Pat Mahomes sat for a year, and it worked out for him. Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes could throw the ball out of the stadium when he came in the NFL, but Andy Reid said you need to go sit for a year. Well, it worked out for him, didn't it? Lamar Jackson, he sat, and so I think with Shedeur, and I keep saying, I think the Browns are I think Todd Monken is kind of redeveloping the development of last year, because last year Shedeur Sanders did not get the coaching and development he should have got, in my opinion. Neither did Dylan Gabriel. I got to be fair to both rookies. That was a bad situation for 2 rookies last year. You brought in 2 veterans, had this weird fake quarterback camp where they knew Joe Flacco was going to start all along. And even Joe Flacco didn't get the reps he needed to get, which he complained about one day after practice. And you had a guy throwing the equipment staff guys and Shedeur Sanders, and you throw him out late in the season when the offensive line's already tore to hell, the season's over with. And, he got 7 games of game experience. So I think that obviously helped him, but I don't think he got the quality development that he should have gotten as a rookie. And so I think it was a disservice to both of those guys, but especially if Shedeur's now in the battle for the quarterback one, and the only guy on your roster right now that has the potential to be your quarterback for the future is Shedeur Sanders. So you have to evaluate him this year as well, because you got to make a decision to see if he's going to be your guy for the future, because you have a projected quarterback class coming out here in the draft. You have 2 first-round picks where there's going to be some guys that could possibly first-round, legit first-round franchise quarterbacks. You got to know if Shedeur's your guy or not. You have to make that decision. And the only way you know is if you put him out there. In my opinion, as an organization, the best way to put him out there is to put him in the best spot possible where he can succeed, and you get a fair evaluation on him. And that's the way, and that I think where this team is, and the best way to do that way would be probably starting Deshaun Watson, who's not a future asset to you, right? Beginning of the season, let him go out there and try to improvise around that offensive line rebuilding, because there's going to be he's probably going to be running around a little bit first couple games, especially on the road, right? You're going on the road, some loud environment, on the road in the Florida, and some, Tampa Bay's been a playoff team the last few years. Jacksonville is a team on the come up. Like, maybe those stands will be loud, beginning of the season, right? Put him out there beginning of the year, let him go run for the Wolves, and then switch it out probably around week 4 or 5, once your offensive line's a little more established, more stable, you've got some home cooking, right? You come back for home, and I think you put him out there where it's a little more stable, and you make the switch then you get a fair evaluation on him. But I've been saying that, and Mary Kay Cabot comes out on 92.3 The Fan today, and now I don't, Mary Kay Cabot obviously covered the Browns for a long time. A lot of people, I don't like, this isn't a disrespect to Mary Kay Cabot. A lot of people have said she's the mouthpiece for the Cleveland Browns. She's very plugged in. And to me, that's actually, like, in some ways, a compliment to her, because, she's very connected with the organization. They give her information that a lot of people don't get. And I think a lot of times she can put things out there ahead of time of kind of what they're thinking, because, again, that's just how it works. The media, and I told you guys for a while, and I know people get mad at the people in the media, and I get it. There's some people in the media I'm not fans of, but or don't respect how they operate, and I get it. But in a lot of the ways, the media is part of what makes the NFL business great is because they're part of selling the product as well. If you don't have a media, you don't have a good, there's not all the hype and anticipation for the season. There's not a lot of build up and all that, all that stuff. So the excitement of it, the media is part of the business. And so she puts out today, she comes out of 93 Fan today and says this exact thing that I just broke down. Here's what she had to say.
Made you think, yep, I like that. That should be the guy.
Well, I have my reasons for feeling like Deshaun should start the season. And those reasons don't have, everything to do with how I think they should necessarily finish the season. I think that when you have a brand new offensive line, 5 new starting guys, we see a lot of procedural penalties out there. When you have brand new terminology, new play caller, new young skill players. Everything is new. I just think that would be a little bit of a tall order for a really young quarterback who hasn't even started a full season before. So he's basically almost a rookie still. In Shedeur Sanders, you're going to be starting 2 games on the road. It's going to be loud. You don't know what the offense is going to look like yet, how it's going to come together. I just think that he would be better served by stepping into an offense that's a little bit more cohesive than what it might be in the beginning. And so my feelings on this aren't just because I think that Deshaun would give them the best chance to win right now. I think Shedeur would do better a little bit later on.
And she just said exactly what I told you guys. That's the only what I've been telling you guys for the last 2 shows. That's the only way I see the Browns, or the only reason why I see the Browns wanting to put Deshaun Watson out there is for that exact reason. And why I think it's significant, she pointed that out today. If you look at past history, you go back to last year, for instance, that so-called quarterback battle in camp, which was not a quarterback battle in camp. They knew they were starting Flacco all along. Okay, we look on the internet right here. You guys can see right here. I typed in Mary Kay 2025 Browns training camp, why Joe Flacco should start. I remember reacted to these articles at that time. This was July 12th, 2025. She wrote, why Joe Flacco makes perfect sense as the Browns' week 1 starter. Okay, she just told you why it makes sense for the starter this year. Well, she told you who the starter was going to be last year too ahead of time. It was Joe Flacco, or why, you guys get what I'm saying, why she thought it made sense last year. August 15th, 2025, right around the same time. Why the Browns should name Joe Flacco their week 1 starter now and let him get ready for the Bengals, which is what you're hearing Tony Grossi say about Deshaun Watson right now, as well as Mary Kay. So we've heard this. You go back to last year when it was a so-called quarterback battle. Remember, Shedeur started the first preseason game and played great. But she was saying the same thing last year about Joe Flacco in that battle. Okay. And they had 4 quarterbacks on the roster at that time as well before they got rid of Kenny Pickett. And so here we are. Okay. The Browns, I think I'm determined now that after hearing what happened Saturday and hearing how Todd Monken explained it, which I don't think, to be honest with you guys, I like Todd Monken, by the way. I'm rooting for Todd Monken. I think Todd Monken's going to do a good job. I think he's done a hell of a job already. But I don't think they handled that well at the press conference yesterday. The way he explained it, I don't think really helped any favor, because now when I hear this today, and then I hear that they came and tapped him on his shoulder and said, hey, we want to see Watson today. And then we've seen the number of reps since then, the difference. I think Deshaun, I'm starting to wonder this hasn't really been a quarterback battle all along. That this has been, it's the same thing as last year. They predetermined who they were going to put the bridge guy out there beginning of the season, which this year is Deshaun. Last year it's Flacco. This year it's Deshaun Watson. And they're running it back. They're doing the same thing again this year. Different coach, I think a better structure this year. And, Shedeur's actually getting the right amount of, I think, preparation he needs. That they've done a hell of a job. And he's gotten a lot better, no doubt about it. And he's looked pretty good in camp, I think, in terms of where I want to see him progress from last year to now. He's been consistent. And so made a hell of a throw yesterday, too. The throw he made yesterday, rolling out left to Dylan Sampson, damn good throw. Great footwork, right hand throwing out the left foot, rolled out left, followed through a dime to Dylan Sampson on the side. But anyways, he's made some impressive throws this camp. And again, Deshaun has bounced back from where he started week 1. He's made some nice plays, and he looks a little better than he did. It wasn't very good week 1 of camp. But back to the main point, though, I think, I think they're kind of telling you right now, subtly ahead of time, that this has probably been their plan. I'm not saying for sure, because you never know, and me personally, I hope it's a battle. I want the best guy to win, because I want to see if Shedeur's, if Shedeur beats out Watson right now, then you put him out there. You let him start week 1, you give him the season, and you see if he's like the next Brock Purdy for you, where you find a guy in the 5th round for a cheap, that kind of deal, to be your starter. But, I think the Browns are being very cautious with him. I think they want to give him a fair evaluation. I would hope that's the reason why, and not just because you're paying Watson money, but I think if they want to, give Shedeur the right amount, the proper development he should have got last year at this time, Because she said it there. She said she called him essentially still a rookie. He hasn't played a full season of games yet. So I think that's what their plan has been. I think they kind of got us again with a little a quarterback battle, because if you go off of week 1 of camp, it was pretty clear who was the better quarterback that week. So another way, it should be the other way around with the reps if you look at it from that standpoint. But again, you're seeing now the organization what the real plan is. It's starting to show its light, I think. And so I think what happened Saturday, I don't know if Todd Monken messed up with what he said Saturday or what. I don't know if that was their subtle way of doing it, but here we are now. And what's been, actions speak louder than words. And the action since, you saw the number count earlier. Yeah. And then when I hear Mary Kay say that today, which is what I was saying for the last 2 shows, why I think they could be thinking that. And now she's saying that. And then you saw last year, we saw the same thing with Flacco at this time. Okay, they're getting you ready to get to be named, getting the fans warmed up for Deshaun to be named the starter probably week 1. But we'll see. Who knows? Well, I think they should still give it the preseason and let it play out. That's just me. That's how I would do it. I want the best guy to start, because I think they need to try to win some games this year. I'm not saying you got to go out and make the playoffs, but you got to win some games. But yeah, that's where we're at with the Browns. But yeah, shout out to Brian Johnson again. He says, "The coach, what is going on. If you don't, that's a problem." Exactly. If he didn't know what was going on, which I don't think. I think Todd Monken's a good enough coach. He knew at least what was going on for sure. I don't get that vibe with him that he didn't know what was going on. So, I think that he knew what was going on, but I think it's very clear what happened here to me. I think it's kind of similar to last year, where there probably really never was a quarterback battle in camp. And, I think that the organization has had this plan for a while. From what it's not. Again, when Todd Monken went up there yesterday and said they came and tapped me on the shoulder, nobody needs to tap you on the shoulder to tell you what's going on. You're the head coach, and you guys meet in the morning before you plan out practice for the day. Guys were already warming up for practice as he was speaking. Like, what are we talking about? The team even meets in the morning after the coaches meet. The teams meet in the morning now in the NFL and college. You see it every morning. If you watch if you're a Shador fan, you probably watch Well Off Media's vlogs every day. What does Colorado do every morning? They meet as a team in the conference, and Deion Sanders literally goes through what they're going to do for that day. You know why? Because the coaches already met prior to that. They had a meeting before the team meeting and laid it all down and laid it all out on a piece of paper, and then they put it in there and it's done. So sometimes they meet start playing practice the night before. They meet they meet a lot. So there's constant communication with the coaches and the staff, or the head coach and the staff and everybody involved. They know what's going on. So, yeah, no doubt about it. I changed my opinion on the Cleveland situation, and that Shador, and to start Shador could be detrimental to him. I'm glad you brought that up, because I know a lot of people would say, well, this is kind of bullshit. They people may say that and think, well, here we are another year, and he didn't get named the starter. And, they even asked her about that on that after, like, how do you think his camp will feel? And I'm sure, obviously, I'm sure the kid wants to play. When you listen to Shore, I think you see, he wants to play, obviously. He wants to be the guy. He wants to go out there and prove himself. But, I think it could be a benefit to him. And I think, again, if it worked for Pat Mahomes, if it worked for Lamar Jackson, for many, many other guys, I think you got to trust the coach here. And as long as the coach has the full autonomy, right, in the season to make that switch and to, have that control over everything, and you trust the coaching staff you brought in to develop this team to where it needs to be. And I like the accountability I heard from Coach today about him and his staff, about what's going on with some of the sloppiness with the offensive camp, that, it probably would be a better benefit to him to wait and let that offensive line develop, and then he gets a fair shot. This guy, even go back at Colorado, he's always been around bad offensive lines. Let's try to get this line up to par. Let's give it, and not saying it's always going to be perfect, but let's give it to about week 4, week 5, throw them out there, and, you got the team's got 4 games under the belt. The line's got better, right? They're going to get better. They're going to get better each week, especially with George Warhop. Okay. The rookie left tackle, he's a little more comfortable now. He's got some games under his belt. The receivers, same thing. Rookie receivers, same things. And then put him out there. Hey, you might get lightning in a bottle. Remember Baker Mayfield, his rookie year. He sat for the first couple weeks. Now, he came in on week 3 because he wasn't supposed to come in on that Thursday night game, because Tyrod Taylor got hurt. But Baker came in and was the juice they needed. And the rest of that year was awesome. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs. They almost made the playoffs, but they were a much better football team. And there was hope and optimism coming out of the season. There was no doubt Baker showed them enough that he's their guy moving forward after that year. And so that could be a great opportunity for Shedeur as well. It could be a perfect situation for him that I think he has kind of that same mentality like Baker, where he can get out there in the scene like that, in a game like that, and just take over and not look back. It's a good opportunity for him, I think. Mary Kay linked with the Haslam wife. Watson was guaranteed the position. He said so basically when he said he got a call reassuring him. Yeah. All they did was get Shedeur ready because they know Watson ain't playing the whole year. And that's exactly all this is. That's exactly all this is. This is not a real quarterback battle. I don't think this is just like last year, but I think it's just more organized and looks, better coached and I think better developed, but, and a better roster, a better offense too, and weapons and all that. But anyways, yeah, I think it's become pretty clear to me, Deshaun Watson, that's been their plan all along. Throw him out there to the Wolves first 4 weeks as we develop everything with a new head coach and new line. And, they assured him that, like you said, and we're paying him all this money. Might as well let him be our bridge guy. It's a hell of a price you're paying for a bridge guy. But, and then we'll put Shedeur out there when we feel it's necessary, which I think would be sooner than later in the season, unless Deshaun somehow turns back the clock to 2020, which I don't think's probably not going to happen from what I've seen in practice. So, yeah. But, yeah, that's my side of it on the Browns and the whole situation. Or that's what I take on the Browns and all of it there on that side of the thumbnail. Now let's get to the other side of the thumbnail and wrap up the show with this. The Cavs. Oh, boy. The Cavs, the NBA schedule, in terms of the primetime games that leaked out, in terms of the opening day slate. Now they have an opening day game at 3:00 this year. They're testing that out. That's gonna be interesting to see how that works. But they have the Cavs are not on Christmas Day. They're not have an opening day game, and a road season opener for the 6th straight year. And it says that, and this is from the We Are Cavaliers on Twitter. Fear the Sword. Shout out to them. We have become underrated again. And so the Cavs obviously getting a little slighted by the NBA. The NBA says we're not giving you a Christmas Day game, even though you were a Final Four team last year. You're not getting an opening day game, even though you were a Final Four team last year. They put the Warriors, who were a 30-win team last year, and they didn't get better at all this offseason. And Jimmy Butler's hurt for first half of the year. They got a Christmas Day game and opening night game. But obviously because it's Steph Curry and it's probably a big market out on the West Coast, fill that 10:30 slot. But, I think the Cavs, in my opinion, and I get it, the Cavs looked horrible in that Knicks series. They melted down in game 1 and never recovered, and I think they quit in games 3 and 4. And the game 3 and 4 to me was more an indictment than the game 1 because of the way they just quit like that at home. I mean, that was a complete debacle. And I ripped them and Kenny for that. I really blame the coach for that as well, and the leaders of the team like Donovan Mitchell. And so the Cavs obviously getting a little disrespected, people think, but I don't think it's disrespect. I think the league doesn't trust the Cavs. And, when they're building out these NBA schedules, they want to put teams in there. Like with Steph Curry, the Warriors are not a contender next year, but with Steph Curry on the floor every night, they can win any game. He can go off for 40. And if they don't win, he can go off and entertain the audience. And Donovan Mitchell obviously has that capability, but he's not Steph Curry. Okay, he's never going to be Steph Curry. He's never was Steph Curry. Steph Curry is one of all-time great guards of all time, the greatest shooter of all time, in my opinion. So, it's a different level. But I think the Cavs should take this though as a disrespect in their eyes, and you would hope it lights a fire in their ass. But more important, it should the organization. Mind you, Dan Gilbert came out after the year, right the night they lost to the Knicks, after they got their asses blown out in game 4 in an embarrassing fashion, said that, they were nowhere where they need to be and that they will dig in and do all they can this summer to get better. And I remember I told you guys that has to be roster moves, because once they retain Kenny Atkinson after that, it's okay. They got to make some major roster changes. Something's got to be coming. When Dan Gilbert speaks, a lot of times he's determined to get something done. And, they try to get LeBron. They were close to getting LeBron, but ultimately I think they didn't want to give up Evan Mobley for Jaylen Brown or Giannis, and that's what it came down to. And LeBron is on a year-to-year basis right now, and he's trying to win a chip. So he felt like Philly was a better roster to win right away next year. They have guys like Jaylen Brown who have actually been there and done that, who's a Finals MVP. So I think that's ultimately why he went there, which is what I was told. But, again, he's on a year-to-year basis. So they struck out on him. But the Cavs, though, they've made no move. Now, they did get better through the draft, getting Malik Thomas, who I think will become a role player of this team this year, who I like. I think he's a stud. But that's not moving the needle enough. He's still going to be a rookie, right? Okay, they brought in Mario Hezonja, who has been out of the NBA for since I think 2019. Has some upside, looked good in the EuroLeague, right? Could be a decent guy off the bench for you, a wing, which you need, but he's not moving the needle. He's kind of an unknown. So they made no moves. They brought back Kenny Atkinson. They rolled it back out with him. And ever since then, it's just been they haven't done shit. And so James Harden is still a free agent as well. And we all assume James Harden didn't leave $40 million on the table to not re-sign a new deal. But, it sounds like for Jake Fisher that the Cavs may back out of a sign and trade talks for Jonathan Kuminga and Peyton Watson as James Harden is camp grow impatient, awaiting his contract. So now James Harden is even sitting here where it's August 11th, and James Harden's going, okay, guys, I'm waiting to sign my new deal because we were supposed to make a roster move or two, and then once you guys make those moves, I will sign my contract to fit around the cap so we can make it all work and the team gets better. Well, the Cavs have not done anything. They've been linked to guys like mainly those two, Kuminga and Watson, and I'll give my thoughts on that in a minute. But, we're just sitting here stagnant. And I said this after the season. Okay, if you're going to bring back Kenny, you're telling me the roster's not good enough and you've made no moves. What are you going to do? Practice more? Like, how are they going to get better this summer? How are they going to dig in and get better? If you're nowhere where you need to be, how are you going to get better? I don't think. What are you going to practice more? Is Kenny all of a sudden going to become some different coach, like a tyrant, like Bob Knight, and Bob Knight style, and start treating the players like that? Well, then he'll lose the team. Okay, so you're not doing that. Obviously, that's fantasy. But like, what are you going to do to get better? Lift more weights? Watch more? What are you going to do? Guys will get better in their games, yeah, but everybody's getting better in the summer. Everybody's working out. Everybody's improving their game. Like, everybody's doing the same workouts. Everybody's working with the little trainers now. It's not like it used to be. Like, guys are doing all the same stuff. Okay, the only thing that's different, some guys may put on some weight, and obviously like some good muscle, which is great for some guys. But other than that, like, everybody's doing the same stuff a lot of times, especially the elite players, the all-star guys. They're all doing the same stuff, working with the same trainers. They all work out together. Like, so what are you going to do to get better? You have to make a move. Okay, your perimeter defense sucked last year. And I said it all. It wasn't just in the postseason against the Knicks especially, but it was all last year. I put the tape out all year and evaluated it and said your perimeter defense, especially your defense as a whole, communication is going to hurt you in the playoffs, and that's what it did. They were bad all year. Didn't communicate well, didn't rotate well. They didn't do a lot of the basic things well. You need perimeter defense. You need somebody that can be above 6'6" finally. I would say 6'7" or above, and could shoot the three, can handle a little bit, and be a 3-and-D guy for you. Okay? So, I think they added to their bench in terms of the draft with Malik Thomas. I think he'll develop into a role player. Hezonja could develop into a good role player. So you add it to your bench, possibly. I think you still need to bring in a big man that's legit. But you need a starting three finally. Because I love Max Strus. I'd rather have Max Strus off the bench. Okay, I think he can give me some great minutes on the bench and some shooting and all that. I don't want Max Strus starting anymore. I don't want to see Dean Wade's out of here, so we don't got to see him starting at the three anymore. You need to get somebody that can actually fit what you need and what you're trying to do. I like Peyton Watson. I think Peyton Watson, to me, makes more sense than Kuminga. Kuminga, the more I thought about him, he's been a little consistent. He's got some upside. He could become that guy you need 3-and-D wise, but the Cavs have always wanted a third guy out there at the 3 that can handle the ball and be a little multiple. I think that's what Kenny wants in his offense. I think he wants guys that have that ability. That's where Peyton Watson comes in. And Peyton Watson, has played some meaningful basketball in his career. Been in Denver, which has been a great franchise the last few years. They've done a hell of a job. Obviously, they won a championship a few years ago, and they've been, playing championship style basketball. They've been trying to compete for championships every single year, especially with Jokic. Last year, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He shot 49% from the field, 41% from the 3-point line. Was very impressive last year. Statistically, was for a bench guy pretty efficient. But only played 54 games, so obviously you want to see him play more games than that. But Watson to me makes the most sense. I do think Watson, if the Cavs are able to sign and trade for him, now what they have to give up, I don't know. I don't want to give up Max Strus because I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But to me, at least, I don't want to do that. But because I like Max Strus, I think he's a plus to your team. And I thought him and Mobley were the most consistent guys in the postseason. But Dave McMenamin talked about it on ESPN the other day. Here's what he said about the latest on Peyton Watson in the Cavs.
Harden resigned. Yeah. Are they considered in that upper echelon of East contenders?
I mean, they made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They're one of the final 4 teams standing. They haven't done much to adjust their roster, though, since they lost Dean Wade. Obviously, they missed out on LeBron. We all are aware of that. I'm told, though, that they are a, quote, serious candidate to land Peyton Watson.
Interesting.
And so there's other teams that have interested in Watson as well, but they are a serious candidate.
Yeah, the Peyton Watson thing raises the ceiling on this Cavs thing tremendously for me. I'm really high on Peyton Watson. I think about that stretch last year when Jokic was out. He averaged 22 points a game. He was taking on the best guys defensively. He can be a real defensive stalwart with that Cavs team. I know they made the conference finals, but it's weird to say they were a conference finals team that were not really a conference finals team. That felt like fool's gold for them. They need to improve, and I think Peyton Watson can do a lot to help them this season.
And I was doing I did the diary with Donovan Mitchell last season, and one of the lasting things he said to me was we didn't have enough time with James Harden. People got to remember that was a mid-season acquisition.
Yeah.
He feels like having him in training camp, figuring him out. He said they weren't even close to figuring out how to play with him just yet, but he felt like in training camp next season will be much better.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the numbers, right, including the regular season and playoffs, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, they played just over 400 minutes together last season, and most of that, Dave, was just in the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, Harden had some good moments against Detroit. He had some bad moments against Detroit. The entire team, they were up 24 points in the second half. We all remember game 1 against the Knicks. Yeah. Maybe if they hold on to that, it's a different type of series.
When those 2 game 6s, they're not as fatigued either. So.
Sure.
Very good point. But what they need to happen, though, is to bring in more talent.
Yeah.
Because look at what the other teams have done in the East. They've gotten better, and they've basically stayed stagnant, if not taken a step back.
And Peyton Watson.
I was a little bit, and I'll stop it right there because I agree with a lot of what they're saying there in terms of, Harden and Mitchell didn't have a lot of time to really get together last year and get a lot of those minutes. And I like what Donovan Mitchell said. I think training camp will be beneficial for them, and they'll have a full training camp to get better. But I don't think the Cavs, they have scoring. You have a guy, Mitchell, who could score. You have Harden who could score. You have guys that can go out and get buckets. You got Evan Mobley, who's improved his game and could score more, almost around 20 points a game. Jared Allen go off many nights down low and go off, get you 20 and 10 or 30 and 10 some nights. You have scoring, you have shooting, right? You have Strus, you have Merrill, you have shooters. So what you need is a guy to go out there and fill out the other stuff you don't have. You need a guy that can solidify the 3-and-D type of wing you need, who can handle the ball a little bit, who is on the come up. Peyton Watson, I think it's probably time for him to move on from Denver to go into a bigger role somewhere else. That's where I think Cleveland comes into play. And a team like that where he'll go right in instantly to the starting 3 spot. And not only that, I think, they made a point there about a lot of those games, they look tired at the end of the game. Like game 6, they couldn't. If they would have won game 6, they wouldn't have played game 6, obviously, and they would have been as fatigued in the postseason. I think a lot of that was because going back to perimeter defense, a lot of energy gets exerted, obviously, on the defensive end of the floor. I would say 75% of defense is effort. And so that's why a lot of nights you see guys that are great scorers sometimes aren't the best defenders, because a lot of it is they just don't really want to put the effort to go play defense. They want to go score. That's what they're great at. And so, you need a guy that I think can help take pressure off of that backcourt where they can preserve them more. right? You have arguably the best front court in terms of defense in the league. One of them in terms of Mobley and Allen. Those two are great. Evan Mobley's already been Defensive Player of the Year. Allen's a very good rim protector. So you have the front court defense, but I think what you need is somebody on the perimeter that can take the load off and take pressure off of those two guys. And to me, that's where a guy like Peyton Watson comes in. And he's shown that. Again, you look at his highlights last year right here. Again, right here against Cade Cunningham, 1 minute, 19 seconds left in the game. He's going against one of the best guards, up-and-coming guards in the league, right? A guy that Cavs played in the postseason. And you see him right here going right up, defensively going toe-to-toe with them and gets a stop, right? And it gets them a possession. That could be a scenario where, Donovan Mitchell, in these situations, they don't have to switch. You have a guy now where you can't just go out and switch constantly on the Cavs. Right? I think the Cavs constantly, they would pick on guys like Harden, pick on guys like Strus at times, or Dean Wade, because they weren't great perimeter defenders. Although I think Strus gives good effort. But a guy like Peyton Watson, you see here, again, he's 6'8", long arms, athletic. He can go toe-to-toe with a lot of guys. You see him right here. He's picking up Kevin Durant full court. And just look at the effort here to go down and get this block. He covers a lot of length out there. And a guy like him with Mobley together on the perimeter, because Mobley switches out on the perimeter sometimes. But him and Mobley kind of, not perimeter, excuse me, but him and Mobley kind of, roaming around the floor like that. They can cover a lot of ground. You see him right here. Just high energy and effort. Doesn't take a lot of plays off. Here he is right here again on Kevin Durant, picking his pocket. Again, he's guarding all the best players. Right here on Jaylen Brown, one of the best two-way players in the game. He's guarding him. So this guy guards all the best players in the league on a night-to-night basis and did a pretty damn good job doing so. And he probably took here he is guarding LeBron James. Blocking LeBron James on the rotate. But hey, he rotates over. That's what you like to see. We didn't have a lot of that last year in Cleveland. But again, this guy, hand in the passing lane right there. Simple things like that I did not see last year. He brings a lot to them that they don't have. And so I think he definitely makes them a better team. And they added to their bench, I believe, through the draft. And you would hope Hazonia becomes somebody. And I think this team can develop more with a better, with a full offseason now, like what Mitchell said with the training camp. But they got to get better. You're not going to get better just by that. You got to add. And I think what they miss is that final piece to help maximize this group. Now, you would have hoped it would have been LeBron, but at least with a guy like Peyton Watson, where I think it could be maybe a little better fit in some ways, is he's not a guy you're expecting to go out and handle the ball and score all bunch of nights and take a bunch of load, like a lot of the load. He's a guy that he's a 3-and-D wing. He shoots 41% from three. He's efficient. That's what you need. And so to me, I think he makes them a better team. Now, does he make them what I picked them to come out of the East? No. I think what Kenny Atkinson needs to do from his standpoint is to maybe add somebody to his staff, like a veteran coach who's won a championship that he can lean on a little bit. I think that'd be beneficial to him. I think when you have the way they lost in the postseason, I think if you're Kenny Atkinson, you got to kind of shift your culture around a little bit. And I think the way you do that is bring in another coach that has a different mentality. What you have, maybe more of a hard ass, more of a defensive minded coach, and maybe somebody who's won a championship as well or been on a championship staff, and you put them on your bench. And so, and you lean on them, and you have another voice in that locker room, somebody who could challenge the players. So I think that's what they need. But I would like those two moves to happen. I think they would be a much better team, and they give themselves a better shot to compete. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoy. Please like, subscribe, and share and all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next one. I'm out of here.